Good morning, everyone. This is Sherry from Sharecroppers, and we are getting ready to start our free online class this week that uses the Snowman Season stamp set and the Snowman Builder Punch. Of course, you can always substitute something if you don't have these, but this is the stamp set that I'll be using today. This little guy right here fits perfectly in the Snowman Punch. So if you have these, then this would be a great set, a great former bundle to use with our cards today. I'm going to go ahead and share this over just to make sure that I can see your comments. So let me grab this up on my laptop and then we will start our class. It's a snowy day out here where I live today, so this is the perfect class for today. Okay, it looks like we have this playing. You just make it a little bit bigger because I do like to have you comment and interact. And this way I can see your comments. So give me a like or a comment to let me know that you're here and that you can see and hear everything, and we'll keep this up on our screen. I see Joanne is here. Good morning, Joanne. Okay. So let me go ahead and grab our supplies and our supply list here. Okay, it looks like we have a couple of people joining us now. Looks like we have 3 on there. Okay. Good morning, Joanne. Good morning, Carol. I'm so glad that you can be here with me today. Did you pull this same stamp set or did you pull something different to use? This one has been around for a couple of years, so I think it's one that a lot of people might already have. I see Kathy is on there. Good morning, Kathy. Okay, yeah, you have the same set, Joanne, so that's good. I think it'll be easy for us to make some quick cards this morning. Hi, Susan. All right, so I'm just putting the finishing touches on one of my little snowmen here. So I will be coloring him during the live today. But you can see that we have 3 cards that we're going to be making. We have 3 very basic card designs. 2 of them are full-size A2 cards, and the other is a cute little gift card holder with a pocket, and it's a self pocket, so there's not a lot of adhering or cutting there. So Carol, you have this stamp set. You can use any designs. I used this one just because I really liked those colors. They were fun, whimsical colors, and I thought they went really nicely with the cute little whimsical snowman. This one, though, I went completely different with no stamped snowmen, but I liked the way it looked with the foiled designer paper. So I think this would be a great gift card for a teen or tween or even just an adult. It's just really pretty and kind of elegant, but in a little cutesy way as well. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our first card. So card number 1 is an A2 size card. So whatever color cardstock you chose for your base, you're going to have it measure 8.5 by 5.5. It will be scored in the middle at 4 1/4 and folded. So it's just a regular A2 card. Let me go ahead and grab my blank card base here so that I can create along with you. Whoops, let me just grab that. My poor short little arms would not reach that, so I had to go around the table. All right, so we have our card base here. We're going to fold that right in half, and then we'll start building our layers. So this is a different way, a different measurement than I've offered before with how to combine a few different designer papers. And these are really small scraps. So essentially you could just raid your scrap bin for this and not cut into larger pieces. Each one of these designer series pieces is 4.5 inches long, but they get a little bit smaller as you go across the card. So this one is 1.5 inches wide. This one is 1 inch wide. And this one is 1/2 inch wide, but they are all 4.5 long. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those here. You don't even have to use Christmas designer paper or winter designer paper for these. You could use any of the basic prints that we have. We have those 6x6 packs of paper in all of our color combinations. I actually think, let's see, I cut that one a little bit. Nope, I did do that one right. You could do a monochromatic card and do 3 different patterns of a specific color, or you could just mix and match some of the colors that are in the color families because they all look great together. They're designed to go together. So we'll get our blue cut here. And then our 1/2 inch strip of pink. Now I was going back and forth with this one. I could not decide if I liked magenta or polished pink better with this print. So I actually ended up going with the polished pink Stampin' Blends. But on our 3rd card, I went with a Magenta Madness base, I believe. Actually, no, maybe I did go. I lied. I did decide to go with polished pink. The magenta looked really nice too. It was just a little bit brighter. Okay, so now we need to have our white mat. Now when we put these on our white mat, there will be an even border around all 4 sides, but we're also going to put them on so that we have that narrow border in between each of the designer papers. This white mat is 3.5 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches long. And if you have a darker card base like I do, you're going to want to cut 2 of those so that way that you have one inside if you want to stamp or write a sentiment in there. With the Misty Moonlight as my card base, that's pretty dark. So I'm definitely going to be putting a white insert in my card. If it was a lighter one, you might not choose to do that. We'll just use our flat glue. I'm using my Tombow liquid glue to adhere these onto our white mat. I was not expecting snow this morning. I knew we would have a kind of a messy weekend, but I didn't think that we were getting snow here. I was surprised. I had Aaron bring me into the studio this morning, so he got to drive in it. Good morning, Judy. The other side of these Wonder and Whimsy Designer Series papers are all foiled, and they're all very whimsical, just really pretty. But I wanted to use these B-sides because I thought these went best with our little snowmen. These are whimsical too, but not in like a fancy way, where the foiled ones are a little on the fancier side. When we get to our final card today, though, if you want to flip one or more of them over and do the foiled sides, those are pretty as well. I actually tried to do one with all of the foils on the front just to show you a variation, but I ended up going back to just the B sides because I really liked the colors. I like that they're non-traditional and they're a little bit bright. So we have our panel built, and this is going to go on our front with just flat adhesive. So use your liquid glue or your your Stamp and Seal. I will forever call our tape runner snail. Freezing rain tomorrow, Judy? Wow, I knew that we would be getting some weather, but I didn't know what. Sounds like tomorrow will be a good day to stay home. On Sunday, my husband and I are helping one of his friends out with his Christmas tree farm. So we will be outside all day on Sunday helping people select their Christmas trees. I'm kind of excited about it. He was a little nervous, I think, to tell me that he had agreed to do this on our weekend, but I said, you know what, I've never done that before. It sounds fun. We're going to do our sentiment now, and our sentiment is just going to be on a strip of basic white. Now mine is 1 by 4, but I did notch the end. So I used the tailored tag punch. I use my tailored tag punch more to notch the ends of my banners than I do to actually make that hexagon shape. So let me go ahead and grab my 1 by 4 piece. This one I think I cut, this is just a scrap from my work surface. It's a little bit bigger than 1 inch, so I'm going to just cut that down. I'm using a sentiment from the Snowman Season stamp set. It says, hoping this season builds heartwarming memories. You can use any sentiment that you want on there. I have that one all loaded up, and I'm going to use Misty Moonlight to go with the background of my card. I'll stamp that over toward the right because we want to make sure that we have room for our snowman on there. Now, if you have a banner punch of some sort, you can use that, or you could even just use your snips to snip a tail on the end of our banner. But I'm going to insert it in so that I'm only snipping off the tail end here, and I'm going to center that from top to bottom so that way I get my little banner notch right in the middle. And then we have our perfect little banner. So this is going to go on our card front with Stampin' Dimensionals. Just add probably 3 of the large size will be good across the back. This is a great one to mass produce, especially if you were using up designer series papers. I know that with a lot of our Christmas cards, we're using specific measurements for a large piece of designer series paper, and you may, first of all, you may end up spending a lot of money if you're trying to get all of them exactly the same. Or sometimes the prints the prints that are in a multi-pack don't really lend themselves to using all of the prints for a specific design. This one, though, is a great way to use up those little scraps that you may have. And if you have paper that has a directionality, you can do those pieces first, but then if you have paper that doesn't have a defined direction, for example, the snowflakes, I'll just pull this in. This doesn't have a defined direction. You could do it either horizontally or vertically, and you could use up lots of little scraps there. And it's also a great way to use up a favorite paper. So if you have one favorite paper, but you only have one 12 by 12 sheet of it and you want to use that for all of your Christmas cards, it's a great way to stretch it because you only need a 1/2 inch strip here. This one actually is 4.5 inches long, but if you wanted to make the most of your designer paper, you could trim this panel down and only do 4-inch strips, and you would be able to get so many. So if you had one 12 by 12 sheet of paper, and this is only a 1/2 inch, that means you'd be able to get 24 from a 4-inch strip. So you would be able to get 72 cards from one of these strips. So if you have one favorite paper that has a small design on it, you could actually stretch that one 12 by 12 for 72 cards. So a great way to use up that favorite paper, but also stretch it to make the most of it. I've already pre-stamped our little snowman, so I'm going to go ahead and color him in just his nose and then punch him with our snowman builder punch. I'm using dark pale papaya for his nose. I thought that was a nice shade instead of a really dark orange. It's more of a dark peachy color. And the way that our punches are designed, you flip it over so that you can see the window. We'll insert our little snowman in there and punch him right out. If you don't have the snowman builder punch, you could still cut him out and just use your scissors. This makes it easy. On our next card, the gift card holder though, we're not stamping him, or at least I'm not stamping him. You can certainly make it yours, but we're going to show you how you can use just the builder punch to create the snowman, and he's super cute too. So I'm going to go ahead and move my card aside. I've already stamped and punched his hat, and instead of stamping and punching his arms, I just punched them from soft suede cardstock. I tend to do that with this little guy because I like the punched ones better than I like the stamped and punched one. So let's color in his hat now. I used both shades of polished pink. So I've got the light and the dark that come together in a combo. I'm using dark mint macaron and light basic black. The light basic black is a really nice alternative to a full strength jet black because you get like a dark charcoal look and you can still see the details when you use your stamp pad. So it's a nice alternative. I always start with my lightest colors first. So I'm going to use my light polished pink and I'm just going to color in the band. You could certainly alternate colors to show the stripes, but I'm just making it all one color. I always use the bullet tip as well. Now I'm going to pull in my light mint macaron, dark mint macaron, and color in the leaves. Instead of red holly berries, we're having dark polished pink because it goes really well with our designer paper. You don't have to stick with traditional colors. You can certainly use traditional colors if that's what's in your designer paper, but if something else coordinates with that, definitely go for what looks best with your designer paper. And now we'll color in the darkest color, which is the light basic black. We're not shading, we're just doing straight coloring. And even if you don't want to shade on your projects, I recommend the Stampin' Blends markers over the Stampin' Write markers because you don't get the streaky look that you do when you use the water-based Stampin' Write markers. Even if you're only using one shade and not shadowing and highlighting in places on your image, the blends are still a better alternative. It's also nice that you don't have to buy a full set of them. You can buy just the 2 in a combo pack. So you have 2 that will automatically blend and coordinate because they come 2 in a package. Whereas you only get 1 of each shade of the Stampin' Write markers, and you have to buy a full set of 10. Now what I'm going to do with our little hat here, if I were to put him on my snowman like that, see how there's a little white gap there? I don't like the way that looks. So I'm going to take my snips and I'm just going to snip off the bottom part of my punched hat so that the bottom edge is right on the edge of the hat. And that just gets rid of that little gap and it makes it look like the hat is really sitting on his head. We'll pull in just a little bit of our liquid glue Just enough to attach his hat on there. It is cute, Susan. I love this set. I'm very happy that this has not retired yet because he's such a cute little guy. So now his hat is right on his head. Now, that little gap also happens if you are trying to put your punched arms on your snowman. Normally, we would put them around to the back, but see how there's that little gap there? To me, that looks really strange to have a gap between his arm and his body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip off part of this arm, because if I put that arm on like that, I think that's too long. So what I do is I snip them off. I snip off about 1/3 of the arm there. And now I'm going to use just a little tiny bit of liquid glue. And I'm going to actually attach these arms on the front of my snowman so that it comes right up to the line of his body. So we're only putting adhesive right on the very tip there and putting it right there, up next to the line. No gaps, no floating arms. You only need a tiny, tiny bit of liquid glue. You can see I'm using just a smidge there. And I'll just press it down on there and let it dry while I do my second arm. Just a tiny, tiny bit. I hope you like these tips, Judy. I know I chat a lot during these videos, but I think that that's the way that we learn how to use these products. I think it's kind of nice to have someone share, hey, this worked for me. You may or may not decide to use that. Maybe you want to stamp and punch your snowman's arms. Maybe you like having the longer arms, but these are just some little tips that I have found. So I'm glad you like those. So we have our little guy done. If you wanted to add little rosy cheeks, you could, or if you wanted to color in his kohl buttons, you could, but I think he looks cute just the way he is. So I'm going to attach him to this banner with flat adhesive. Our banner is already popped up, so I think that's enough dimension there. Oh goodness, his little arm, I'm going to have to move that because I don't want it to poke past the side of my card. So maybe I'll just, my glue is still wet, so I can angle those up a little bit. So I think I'll do that so that way it doesn't extend past my card. That I think will be okay. So a little bit of liquid glue on the bottom part of our snowman, so our biggest snowball there, will hold it right in place. Now you could use gems or sequins on here to add a little bit of sparkle, but I think he's cute just the way he is. You could also add your panel inside. I haven't added a panel inside mine, but you could add your white panel in there, add another sentiment. So if you have this on the outside, I would stick with something simple on the inside like Merry Christmas. So we have our first card done. He's a cutie. I'll set those aside. And we'll move on to our second card. I kept this one as our second card because we're using that Snowman Builder Punch again. The last card uses a completely different stamp and it doesn't use the Builder Punch. So we'll do this one next. So this one is a gift card holder. You're going to start with a half sheet of gray granite cardstock or whatever your card base is. Now it's cut the opposite way of our first card. So you're going to cut your cardstock so that it's 4 1/4 by 11. And let me just grab a piece of gray granite here. I had mine all cut and scored, but I left it on the other side of the table. So you can see it's 4 1/4 by 11. Now we're not scoring this right in half. Because we're making a little self pocket on here, we're going to score it. Let me turn it this way so that the scores make more sense. You are going to score it at, no, I had it the right way. Don't mind me today. You're going to score it at 2 1/2 and 6 3/4. Then when we make our folds, when we fold on that 2 1/2 inch line, this is going to be that self pocket. And then when we fold back on the 6 3/4 inch mark, this will become our card front. So it's a little bit different score lines than normal. Score at 2 1/2, 6 3/4. Now don't adhere your pocket up yet. We're going to do a little bit of stamping on the inside, and we're also going to put a white insert in there. So for our basic white, we are going to need 2 pieces of basic white that are 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. I'm going to pull in my little paper trimmer here. So for those of you that are struggling with eighths, it's important to keep in mind that on your paper trimmer is most likely going to have the vertical lines every 1/4 inch. So this is 3 1/4, 3 1/2, 3 3/4. 3 7/8 will be halfway between that, which is actually this middle line. So I'm going to move it over so that it's halfway between 3/4 and 4 and trim. And I'll do the same thing going the other way. So that way we have our square, 3 7/8 square. I might as well cut both of those while I have my trimmer right here. One of these is going to go inside our gift card before we adhere our pocket up. Now for this one, I didn't put any little snowflakes on the inside, but I think I want to. So I have my gray granite ink pad here, but you could use whatever color coordinates with your card base. I like to use Pool Party for my snowflakes, but I don't have Pool Party anywhere on this card, so I'm just going to stick with gray granite. Grab my little snowflakes. I like these snowflakes because they look like little sparkles. Sand truck is going by. The roads are pretty yucky out here this morning, so if you are in Maine and you can stay home, I suggest staying home today. All right, so we're going to add just some little sparkles here with our gray granite. And I think that I may overstamp those a little bit and do some that are second generation, which means that I'm not re-inking. So I'll get a lighter snowflake there. I like that a lot. I'll do some more here over in this corner. And I'll rotate it a little bit and do that second generation. I actually think I'm going to do that over the whole top part, so that way it looks like I have my own designer series paper at the top there. Remember to always rotate so that way it doesn't look like it's so linear. You want to add a little bit of interest there so it looks more random. I I won't worry too much about the bottom because that's going to be underneath my pocket. There. That way it's just not so plain inside. While I have my gray granite open, I'm also going to stamp my sentiment on this flap. So that way, when it's folded up to make a pocket, I'll have this stamped background. I think I'll add some more snowflakes there before I adhere that in. So we have that stamped background. We'll have our sentiment here, and the gift card will go down in the pocket. Before I put my snowflakes away, I just want to do one more quick little stamped off cluster of snowflakes right there. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to keep this one simple, and I'm going to do just Merry Christmas today. Before I do that, I'm going to punch a little notch here at the top, so that way it's kind of like a little place where you can have like a thumb hole to grab that gift card out of there. Now, I'm using my snowman punch to do that. You could use a half circle or a circle to make a half circle, but I'm going to just put it in so that way only the tip, like the top part of his head, will make that little notch. But I do want to make sure that I'm centering it. So what I'm going to do is use my grid paper to help me. So I think you can see this side of my grid paper. This card is 4 1/4 inches wide. So that means my halfway point will be at 2 1/8. So I'm just going to make a little mark at 2 1/8 inches, which would be right there. And then when I make my punch, I'll just make sure that that is kind of centered in the center of his head. So I've got my snowman punch and I'm holding it upside down this time. I want to make sure that the little nose and the fingers on the stick arms do not come into the cardstock at all. So I'm using that as a guide. I can see that my cardstock is not going up into the nose or stick portion. And I'm centering that little pencil mark right in between, right in the center of his head. And I'll give a little punch. And we've created a little notch without having to have any extra special tools. So I'll make this a bit flatter now, and we'll go ahead and add our sentiment there. I want Merry Christmas on the inside because this is going to be a Christmas gift card holder. Grab that and add some ink. I'm doing tone on tone, but if you prefer to have a darker color, you could absolutely do that. And I just want to center that here on my card front, or the pocket front, I guess. And now we have our self pocket. We'll adhere this flat inside and then use some tear and tape or liquid glue to create our pocket flap. I would not recommend using just regular double-sided tape or our regular tape runner because you want to make sure that your pocket holds. When I'm doing 3D projects or something that is going to have movement, I always use tear and tape or liquid glue. Before we put that pocket in though, we'll put this little snow background in there. You could also use designer paper or even just plain cardstock. How many of you are stamping along with me today? I like when you're stamping with me, and I love that you're sharing projects. We have a couple of people that have been sharing their variations, and I love that. So make sure that if you are stamping, even if you're following along exactly, or if you're changing them up a little bit, make sure that you're sharing those in the group because we love to see what you are working on. All right, I buried my tear and tape here on my table. Imagine that. I won't take too much. Oh, there it is, right under my stamp set. And see, my tear and tape is almost gone. I've been using a lot of it this season. There's not a dispenser for tear and tape, so it's really easy to use. You don't have to worry about it gumming up inside a container. You literally just tear it. So I'm going to put it really close to the side of my pocket and just tear it off. And I'll do that with the bottom, or this side. None on this side because that's where we're going to tuck our little gift card. And then just fold it up. And we have our little pocket that's notched for the gift card to go in. I don't have a gift card right here, but I do have a voucher from last Monday's bingo, because if you play bingo with me, you get a $5 coupon to use on an order. And that will tuck right in there. So you can tuck it this way, or you can put it in at a bit of an angle. Sometimes if they have a really cute design on them, I like to tuck it in at an angle. And also if they have a dollar amount up there, I like to tuck it so that way the recipient can see just when they open it how much it is for. They don't have to pull it out. They can just kind of see what that gift card is for. So we have our pocket. Now it's time to embellish the front. Now, one tip that I will give you is, because this is a square card, you want to make sure that you're always keeping in mind that your flap needs to be at the top. So we're going to build our panel to go on the front and then put it onto our card base. So this is a really simple panel. I've just used a piece of the foil designer paper, and we're going to mat that with some basic white. Grab some of that foil here. I tried a few different variations of cards with this foil, so I only have a little bit left, and it makes me sad because it's such a cute print. The back of it is that fun stripe that we're going to use on our last card. Our designer series paper for this card is going to be 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. So again, if you have one designer paper that you only have one sheet of and you want to stretch it, having a smaller card like this is a great way. You can still keep it as the focal point, but you'd be able to get 9 of them from one piece of 12 by 12. So we'll keep it at 3 3/4. Plus you'd have some leftovers for that first card that we made. Now we'll put this on our basic white. Remember, you don't need tons of liquid glue, just a fine line around the 4 edges. You don't need any in the middle, because if the edges are not going anywhere, I promise the middle of your card is not going anywhere either. Now, before we put this on the front of our card, we are going to wrap some ribbon around it. Originally, I had thought about using the frayed blushing bride, I can't say that today, blushing bride ribbon, but it's been sold out and it's discontinued. So I thought, well, let's use something different. And I'm using the white linen thread that's part of the Flowers for Every Season combo pack. This is from the annual catalog. I actually liked it 100 times better. So you never know. Sometimes things happen for a reason, and I like this one better. We're going to do a faux bow on the front because I think that we're able to manipulate that a little bit better and get it to be a better shape. And it's kind of a focal point of our card, so we want to make sure that we have a nice bow. So we're going to take a small amount, enough so that we have the entire length of our panel plus a little bit to wrap around the back. I recommend using glue dots or tear and tape to adhere your tails around to the back. I'm going to be using tear and tape. And we want to make sure that we're adhering that so that it is going to be straight across the front, you can use your grid paper to help with that. I think the tear and tape works really well for this linen thread or linen ribbon because the tear and tape is flat as well. A glue dot will still give you a little bit of a bump. Good morning, Betsy. Good morning, Gwendolyn. Good morning, Anne. How is everyone today? I know that you are all pretty local here, so I bet you're getting snow at your house as well. I haven't seen it snowing for a little bit here. There's definitely some fresh snow out there, but the sand truck has been going by a lot, so be careful if you have to go out today. So now we just have a nice straight piece of ribbon going across our card front. Now, I want a perfect bow here, but I know that if I tie my bow with this ribbon around my piece of ribbon, it's not going to go at exactly the angle I want. So I'm going to show you another little trick for getting your ribbon to look like it is kind of pulled together and tied, but we're just faking it. We're doing a faux bow and we're doing some other faux techniques. So I'm going to take a piece of glue dot, or actually the whole mini glue dot, and I'm going to scrunch my ribbon together right where I want my bow. On my sample, I had put it right in the middle of my square. So I'm going to scrunch my ribbon together. That's a very technical term. And I'm going to put my glue dot so that way it kind of holds that scrunched side in a little bit. I'm pressing it down onto my ribbon, the side of the ribbon, but also onto the designer paper. I know it looks a little weird right now, but we're going to do the same thing on the other side of the ribbon. So we will scrunch it in. See how I'm pulling that together, and it will look like it's tied. And I'll press that little glue dot down on there, and it holds my ribbon scrunched right in like that. And you can kind of push it together like that as well. All of that little cluster will be covered up by our bow, but this way it looks like it's pulled in and really tied. Now we can do a bow right from our roll. And you can make your bow as big or small as you want. And then snip your tails. And then we can add that right over that scrunched piece with some glue dots. This is kind of a big bow, so I think I'll probably use 2 glue dots on the back. We'll press it down right over that scrunched ribbon. It's a very technical term, isn't it? The scrunched ribbon. There, and now we have our faux bow right where we want it. It looks so pretty on there. Now we can go ahead and put this on the front of our card. Remember, we've already stamped our sentiment. We want to make sure that fold is at the top. You can use tear and tape or liquid glue. You could even put this up with dimensionals if you want to. I'm not going to because I feel that that bow and the snowman will be up on dimensionals as well. So between the bow and the snowman, it's going to have some dimension, and I think this can go on flat. We'll just center it right on our square. If you're not using the snowman set today, or if you just want to make a variety of these, you could use this layout for any design. And that's kind of why I'm choosing these basic card designs, so that you can use whatever you have. I had someone leave a comment for me last week that said these cards are so simple. And that's kind of the point. We have a lot of people watching, whether it's during the live or the replay, who have never stamped before or who have never made cards. And that is the point. We want these to be simple. We want them to be easy to copy. And we want everybody to be able to mix and match what they have and create something that they love. Now for this snowman, I'm only using the punch. I'm not using the stamp. So I've just punched a body from basic white. I punched the hat from gray granite. And we don't have a tiny heart punch. You might have a tiny heart punch or a tiny heart die. This is actually from the upcoming Valentine suite called Sweet Conversations. So I had that bundle out because I was making some samples for my upcoming bingo in January, and this little heart was the perfect size. You can use, you could even use a snowflake if you wanted to. You could use a heart that's punched or cut from designer paper or cardstock. I just used those tiny dies to cut one from Blushing Bride because it matched my paper. I will say my favorite heart that we've had that was a punch was from the dog punch. That was my favorite shaped little heart. So if you have the dog punch, that heart would look perfect on this little snowman. So we're going to add a little bit of liquid glue to the brim of our hat. And add that to his head. We don't have to worry about snipping off any pieces for this because there's nothing stamped, so there are no gaps. And then we'll also add the little heart. I'll go ahead and put my liquid glue right on my snowman so that way I can just press the heart down on him. You could also use a mini glue dot. The liquid glue kind of gives you a little bit of time as well to position it exactly the way you want it. We'll give it a little press down. Now, I did not use arms for this guy. If you want him to have arms, you can, but I kind of like the really simple graphic look of this. Oh, I stuck him down to my grid paper. Oops. There we go. And he'll just get put right on our card front at, let's see, did I do an angle? I think I'll do a little bit of an angle, and we'll put him on with dimensionals. Oh, Judy, I just saw you're going to Seabrook. Yes, hopefully. I heard that Sunday is supposed to be the better of the 2 days. So I hope that you have safe travels and a nice visit with your sister. Thank you, Dawn. I'm glad that you like this. It is really simple, but it, like you said, it is really cute. We'll put him or her on at a bit of an angle. And now we have our finished gift card holder. Again, really simple, but I would absolutely give this. I think it's really a cute card. If you don't want to do the stamping inside, you could have it blank. But this is a great gift card design for birthdays or for Mother's Day or Father's Day. And you know how hard it is to create cards for guys. This would be a great one for Christmas for guys. Leave off the heart. Don't use pink paper. But you could always put on a little scarf if you have just paper scraps, or if you have one of the retired Let's see, there was an embellishment pack that went with these, but there's also the retired moose stamp that had a scarf. The new penguin set has a scarf that you could stamp. The possibilities are endless, but you could also use a little scrap of ribbon on there or some of the curly yarn, just something that's not quite as feminine, and it would make a great gift card holder for a guy. All right, that is card number 2. Card number 3, we are going to finish together because I wanted to do my coloring. So I'm going to show you a little tip for coloring the ribbon as well. So this was a bonus for using our white ribbon as opposed to the now discontinued frayed ribbon. So we're actually going to do our ribbon first. I'm going to set my card aside and I'm going to take my linen ribbon. Again, this is from the Flowers for Every Season combo pack. This is from our annual catalog. And I am going to cut about 10 inches of that. And I'm going to color it with my Stampin' Blends markers. I'm using my light polished pink, but you can use whatever color you might have. If you don't have alcohol markers, you could also do this with an ink pad and a sponge dauber. But I'm just going to run this across my ribbon, but I'm not going the whole length of it because I'm going to get a cool ombre effect here. So I'm going to run it across my ribbon here, only on the lower half. Okay, so now on the other side, I'm going to take my color lifter and I'm going to run it across the other side of my ribbon. Now, I'm not actually lifting color, but what I am doing is I'm going to make sure that I'm touching the ribbon there in the center. And that will start to blend the ribbon, so that way you don't have that harsh line across the center. And do you see how I'm going over that center line where it's bleeding into the white side of the ribbon? So I'm going right over the center, right over the middle, but not all the way to the other side. And look at how that gives you that really pretty watercolor ombre look. Alcohol markers are a great way to, okay, so on my computer, it says that my video has ended. On my phone, it doesn't say that it's ended. Can you give me like a little comment? I can see comments on my phone right now too. Can you leave me a comment if you can still see my video? If not, we'll jump back in and start a new one. Can anybody still see the video? Leave me a comment or give me a thumbs up. Still here. Okay, so it's really windy here right now at the studio, so I just can't see it on my laptop, but I'll keep an eye here on my phone. Okay, perfect. It's just the connection then with my computer. Okay, good. Thank you so much. I'm going to refresh my computer and then we'll jump back in. I think my computer just lost its connection there. So we'll just give it a refresh and we'll keep going. So that's how I created this ombre ribbon, and I'll set this aside to dry completely, although honestly, I'm feeling it right now and it feels completely dry to me. So we'll just set that up there and we'll go ahead and start assembling our card base. This is on polished pink. When I looked at it next to my blends, I thought, no, that's not the same color, but it is polished pink. The caps on the Stampin' Blends are deceiving. The most deceiving one is, this is the light basic black. It actually looks like it has a periwinkle colored cap, but it is the light basic black. But I used polished pink for my card base, and this is a regular fold, so it's 8.5 by 5.5. You'll score it in the middle at 4 1/4 and fold it. The white insert here. So we have a white mat, and for this one I would also put an insert exactly like that on the inside. That is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I'll go ahead and cut another one of those. Pull in some more basic white. If you have a lighter card base, you don't necessarily need to have one for the inside, but I think it does lend a nice detail to the front of the card. I like that little border. It makes it look really crisp. 5 3/8. So I'll set one aside for the inside of our card. This layout is a great way to use up some scraps as well, but you can cut full sheets. You're going to use 2-inch strips. And if your card is a vertical card, 2 of those are going to be vertical rectangles. 2 of them will be squares, so don't worry about the direction for those because you could turn them either way. But with this one, you could also turn it to be a horizontal card. The thing to keep in mind is if one of your papers or more of your papers has a directionality, you want to make sure that you are cutting it going in the correct direction. So the 2 squares are 2 by 2, and the 2 rectangles are 2 by 3 1/4. I like this layout for my 6 by 6 papers because there is absolutely no, there's no waste practically. You could do the 3 1/4 inch pieces and then have a 2-inch square of that left over. And so you're using 5 1/4, so you're ending up with a 3/4 inch by 2-inch scrap, which is pretty minimal. And you don't even have to have those scraps left over if you're mixing and matching all of these different card designs. The stripe is on the back of that really pretty foiled snowflake pattern. So you may already have that out if you are doing these the same way I'm doing them. So we have our 2 squares. Now we'll cut our rectangles. This is the card that I almost did another variation for just to show you what the other side would look like if we used the foils instead of these plain ones. Our rectangles, remember, are 3 1/4. Now this stripe has a directionality, so I want to make sure that my 2-inch wide measurement is going to be going the same direction as the stripes. My 3 1/4 inch will be how tall it is. Oops, 3 1/4. I'm not a fan of that green, so I'm going to cut the green off. I like the pinks and the blues and the greens, obviously. Okay, so now we can go ahead and adhere those down. Play around with the arrangements, but essentially what it is your 2 rectangles are going to go opposite each other. So on each side, you'll have a square and a rectangle. But on one side, the square will be on top and the rectangle will be on bottom. And on the other side, the rectangle will be on top and the square will be on the bottom. And then we're going to start adhering those down. I like to start with one of the rectangles because that gives you the biggest border to align with your mat. Oh, before I glue those down, see what this would look like with the foils? So you would have the same design, you just have all those pretty foiled elements on there. So it's still very pretty. I just happen to like these bright colors with our snowmen. I use this layout a lot because it is a great way to mass produce cards without a lot of different measurements. It's a pretty simple measurement. I'm going to leave about a 1/16 of an inch border around the outside. Now, if your pieces, when you glue them down, don't leave that same border, notice what I'm doing. I'm not putting it right up to the edge there. I'm making my border correct, and I'm just slightly overlapping my designer paper. I want to make sure that my center is aligned. If there's a tiny gap here where they come together in the middle, don't worry too much about that because remember, we're going to put either a 2 3/4 inch square or our die cut circle over the center, and that will cover that area where those designer papers meet. So I can see here, if I line my edges up with the designer paper that's already glued down, it's going to be pretty close. I'm not sure that I have adhered them perfectly, so there is a slight overlap here. No one will ever know once we get our snowman on. I'm more concerned about where my designer papers meet and what the border looks like. Not worry too much about this spot in the middle. They did happen to come together, but if yours don't, or if they need to overlap a little bit, don't worry about it because we're going to be covering that up. Now this is just going to go flat on our card base. So we'll get our polished pink card base out. Left all my card bases on the other side of the table. This girl with short arms is struggling this morning. We'll go ahead and fold our card. Oops. Oh, this was the card base that I cut for a different card. Let me grab our regular one here. I have about 20 projects going on my work surface right now. Not sure how many of you have that happening as well. There we go. Here's our regular one that I had cut for this. I have a different set of projects going on each of my 4 tables, but they happen to all be connected. So I know where things are as far as I can narrow it down to a table. All right, so this will go flat on our card front. There goes the sand truck again. Makes me a little bit worried about the roads out there. I'm glad that they are keeping them sanded for us though. Okay. Now this is going to have a very narrow border, another 16th of an inch border around all 4 sides. There. Okay, we'll just refresh my computer because I was able to get that. I'm glad it was just my computer that disconnected. I'm not sure what happened last week with the sound. The sound cut out on us, which was really crazy. I don't know what happened. Okay, so there we have our card base finished. What I did to prep was cut a 2 3/4 inch circle from basic white. Now, if you want to use a square, if you don't have a circle punch or a circle die, you could also use a square or a rectangle in the center. I like the circle because it breaks up all of those linear lines. And we're going to stamp our little snowman and then color him with Stampin' Blends. So I pulled those same colors from our designer paper. The only thing that I've added from the other snowman is that we're going to be using some of our Misty Moonlight as well. I wanted to pull in some of the blues there. So let me go ahead and grab my Misty Moonlight. Our dark one, I think, is going to be a little too dark. I think we'll probably stick with the lighter of the two, light Misty Moonlight. Let me grab that. I think I'm only going to put that as our only pink. So I think I'm done with polished pink. So I did his nose with the dark pale papaya, and I did the hat with the light polished pink. But I think I'm going to stop with my pinks now and just stick with my blues and mints. And I think I'm going to do my scarf with some wider stripes of the mint macaron. This is the dark mint macaron. I want to pull all of my designer paper colors in. So those wide stripes look pretty cute with the dark mint. Just stop and look at those stripes really carefully. All right, so we've used our dark mint, and now I want to pull in the light Misty Moonlight. Just rummaging through my bin here. Where is my light Misty Moonlight? I don't see it here, so it might be the dark Misty Moonlight that we go with. See, this is my light Night of Navy. Let's see what that looks like with it. I might actually go with that. Let's try the dark Night of Navy too. Oh, dark Night of Navy looks great with that Misty Moonlight. So we're going to do that with our dark mint macaron. Kind of regretting that pink that I put on there. Not loving the pink on there. Yeah, you know what? We're gonna get rid of the pink. I'm going to color that in with my dark. I'm gonna color right over that with my dark Night of Navy. Oh, I like that so much better. That pink just wasn't working for me. I like that a lot though. And we have our pink on our ribbon, so we're still pulling in that pink. Much better. All right, we'll add a little bit of green to our tree here too. We have our cute little Charlie Brown pine tree. Now I'm going to go right over that so that way I can see the green way beyond. So it's not really coloring, it's more like tracing, but we have that little bit of color there. All right, I'm trying to decide now, do I want something around the edge there? I think that's going to be okay. I like that. So we'll go ahead and we will put this down, but before we put it on our card base, we're going to add our ribbon, and we're going to add that in a Z fold on the back. So I always have lots of questions. I did put some dimensionals on the back here. That'll be okay. Pull those off real quickly. I always get some questions about how I make my ribbon go into a Z fold on the back of my card. So this is the perfect time to share that with you. I like tear and tape for this. I like tear and tape because it will stick to the back of my die cut, so it will stick to the cardstock, but it is not going to stick to the ribbon permanently. I'll be able to reposition my ribbon. So with my image going up and down, I'm just going to flip it over so that my image is still going up and down. I'm going to put some tear and tape. I'll put 2 strips of it on the back here. I want to make sure that it goes up and down so that way it will catch my ribbon no matter where I put it going across. You'll see what I mean when we add our ribbon on there. So our tear and tape goes up and down. It goes in the same direction as our image on the front. So now I'll take that ribbon and I'm going to hold it so that it is going horizontally. Okay. And I'm going to put it so that I'm holding each end and I'm basically centering that die cut circle right across the middle. And you can do this with a square as well. And I'm going to press it down onto the tear and tape. Now when I turn it around, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a finger here so that I have a little bit of the loop sticking out on that side. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I'm going to pull that across so that I can still see the loop, but also see the tail on the other side. And I'm going to just press that down. And I'll do the same thing with this bottom tail. I'm going to hold it on there so that I see a little bit of the loop, but I also see the tail. And do you see how it's kind of making a Z or a backwards Z shape on there? It's like the perfect little, kind of like a little fold of ribbon. I could feel that this was not smooth on the back, so I wanted to just smooth that out a little bit. But it's just kind of a little wisp of ribbon on the back there. And then I'll cut my tails at an angle. See. There. Gosh, he's so cute. And he's going to go right on my card front. We'll pop him up with some dimensionals. If you needed to reposition that ribbon, the tear and tape makes it really easy to do that because the ribbon is easy to pull off that. To show you what I mean by that, I'll just pull this off gently. See how you can peel that right off, but the tear and tape stays permanently on your cardstock, so you're able to reposition your ribbon. I like doing that when I'm making a cluster of twine on the back as well. So whether you're using linen thread or some of our baker's twine, that as well works with this technique. We'll put him right in the center, and then we'll add a little sentiment strip from a scrap. Perfect. Gosh, he's so cute. Okay, so I'm just going to add a little banner of basic white. I'm going to stamp that same, hoping this season builds heartwarming memories. I'm going to stamp that same sentiment on there, but this time I'm going to use, no, I think I'll use that Misty Moonlight again. I like that. So we'll stamp that on a banner. We'll cut our banner first. That's going to be 3/4 of an inch. I think that will fit on there and be a very snug fit, but still fit. Yep, 3/4 of an inch. And then we'll cut it a little bit bigger because I want to snip both ends at an angle. So this, I believe, is 4 1/4, but we'll be snipping that. The important thing is the width. We want to make sure that it is just wide enough to fit our sentiment. Now I'm going to use this banner tailored tag to make our banner punch. And I want to go in almost to the sentiment. So if I pull it in so that I can see the tip of my sentiment, see how I can see the S there? I want to pull it back just a little bit and we'll snip. Okay. That way we get a really snug fit there to our banner. I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll pull it so I can see just the tip of the H there. Pull it back just a hit and then punch. And that way we get a really snug fit to our sentiment. And I'm going to put that right underneath my snowman so that it overlaps my circle. I want to still be able to see the bottom of my snowman and see that definition though. So I'm going to put it so that I can see just the bottom right about there. So we'll add some dimensionals to that. I'm only going to put a dimensional near each end because I don't want the dimensional to overlap my circle. That would make too much of a bump there. So we're going to fit it right there. There. And we have our last card finished. If you want to add a sentiment to the inside panel, you can. Let's see, I think that I will pull in that Merry Christmas that we used earlier. This time I'll be using blue though. I think the blue will stand out really well. Oh, that came out great. And then this will just go flat inside our card. There. Now, sometimes I like to add a little bit of designer paper to the inside. And if you have some narrow strips, this would be a great time to add some of that designer paper in there. I like the blue. And since we have blue ink, I think I'm going to add a narrow border of this blue DSP on the inside. Not too big, just like a 1/2 inch strip. An afterthought. Another afterthought is to make sure that you're stamping your envelopes while you have all of your supplies out. I know that some of you are creating these cards and then literally writing them out and mailing them the same day. I've had lots of people tell me that, and that makes me so happy. So if you are one that is doing that, make sure you're stamping your envelopes right now as well. So this we're going to cut to 4 1/8 because that is how big our white panel is inside. And we'll go ahead and stick that right down and our card will be finished. You can add any embellishments like rhinestones or sequins that you would like. I think that little snowflakes would be adorable with all of these. I think the gift card holder is okay the way it is because I think that foil paper is enough of an embellishment in itself. I think that the little guy that we did first, this one up here, I think he would look really cute with some snowflakes or sequins scattered on the top around those designer papers. There. Perfect. Just a little bit of extra on the inside, that little detail. Gosh, he's so cute too. I'm so glad that we changed his hat to be blue. And so we have our 3 finished cards. We have our little guy with the top hat with all of our designer papers. Then we have our designer paper patchwork background with our custom ribbon. Finally, we have our little guy on the gift card holder that he's just so sweet and elegant. It's hard to pick my favorite. I love the colors on these papers, but I really love the simplicity of this little guy. Oh, that one is my sample. This is the one we made today that had our sentiment and the snowflakes inside. Again, I'm torn. I don't know if I love the snowflakes or if I love the plain simplicity of it. But they're both super cute. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm seeing the comments now. I'm glad you love the cards. I understand it's hard to type and stamp. I'm having the same problem because I'm trying to read and stamp, and it's tricky. It's tricky. As long as you're doing the stamping, that's all that matters. Thank you so much for joining me. So next Friday, I have forgotten off the top of my head what our set is. Let me come back and take a peek at that because I have forgotten now. I almost think that this is our last Christmas set. Does anybody remember? Is next week our goats? I think we're doing some birthday cards. Oh gosh, I need to go back and check that now. Let's see here. So, oh gosh, today is the 10th already. How did that even happen? Okay, so if today is the 10th, next week is the 17th. I can't remember if our goats are next week or if they are the 24th. Let's take a quick peek before I let you go. There we go. Check our group here. And we'll check out our events. We want to know what is happening on the 17th. I should know that off the top of my head, but I planned the next 3. Okay, so this is our last Christmas card class. Next week is a birthday class, but it's the sweet ice cream card class. So we've got some cute projects that I've started with those as well. And with sweet ice cream, we are using the pastels. You're a Peach, I believe, is the name of that one. We'll be using the sweet ice cream stamp set and the ice cream cone builder punch. Oh, no, they were the pastels, but it's the hand pen designer series paper. So we'll be using what we call the B sides. That means they are the sides that are not necessarily the focal point. We are not using the florals, but we are using the other cute little designs. There was a yellow that had kind of a scalloped print on it. They were all kind of like doodled designs. And then there was a green, like a mint green, seafoam, I think. And one of the other colors, I want to say it was the peach one, is like a polka dot. So those are the colors that we are using for that class. So if you don't have those papers, you could substitute something similar. And I did post pictures of those in the event. That sweet ice cream event is already up there, and I'm looking at the pictures now. So it's the yellow, the mint green, and the peach. So there's a stripe, a scallop, and a polka dot. So if you have something with those colors or those prints, that's what we'll be using. I'm so glad you like them. Happy weekend, everyone, and stay safe if you are driving out there. And I'll see you next Friday. Bye.